It was a bright evening filled with laughter, music, and the soft clinking of glasses. The garden outside Mr. Harris's house looked magical. Fairy lights hung from the trees, the air carried the scent of fresh roses, and everyone had a smile on their face. It was his retirement party, the day he had been waiting for after giving 35 long years to the company. For him, it was supposed to be a day of peace and joy, surrounded by his family, friends, and colleagues. But little did he know that behind all those smiles, someone had a secret, a dangerous secret that could have taken his life. Mr. Harris, a man in his late 60s, looked calm and content that evening. He had always been a gentle and hard-working man. His wife, Margaret, had passed away years ago, and since then, he lived with his only son, Daniel, and his daughter-in-law, Olivia. Daniel was a quiet man, soft-spoken and respectful, but Olivia was different. She was young, beautiful, and clever, but something about her had always made Mr. Harris uneasy. There was a certain coldness in her eyes, something she tried to hide behind her sweet smile. The guests began arriving early. The whole backyard was decorated with golden drapes and white flowers. There was a small stage where Mr. Harris was supposed to give his farewell speech. Everyone came to shake his hand, praise his years of work, and wish him a happy retired life. He smiled and thanked each one of them, but deep down, something felt strange. Maybe it was the look Olivia gave him earlier that day, a quiet, calculating glance that stayed in his mind. I still remember that night, Mr. Harris would later say to himself, the night when everything changed forever. As the evening went on, the crowd grew happier. Music played, laughter filled the air, and people raised their glasses for toasts. Daniel was busy talking to his co-workers, and Olivia moved around gracefully, serving drinks, greeting guests, and pretending to be the perfect daughter-in-law. But Mr. Harris kept watching her. Every movement she made, every time she turned to look at him, something about her seemed rehearsed, like she was playing a part. He tried to shake off the uneasy feeling and enjoy the night. He looked around at all the familiar faces. His old friend Peter was cracking jokes near the buffet, Mrs. Clark from next door was dancing, and his old boss gave him a warm hug. Everything looked perfect, too perfect. As the sun went down, the lights became brighter, and the dinner was about to start. Mr. Harris took a seat near the head table, where Daniel and Olivia joined him. Olivia's smile was gentle, but her eyes flickered nervously. She reached for a bottle of wine and poured it carefully into 2 glasses, one for him and one for herself. Her hand trembled slightly as she passed him the glass. "Here you go, Dad," she said sweetly. "You deserve a special toast tonight." He smiled back, but his instinct made him pause. For a second, he noticed something, a faint smell coming from his drink. It was sweet, almost too sweet, not the usual aroma of wine. He looked up, and Olivia quickly looked away. His heart skipped a beat. Was it his imagination? Or was something truly wrong? He didn't drink right away. Instead, he laughed and said, "Let's all toast together, shall we?" and stood up. Olivia hesitated for a moment but forced a smile. Daniel lifted his glass too, unaware of anything strange. As they raised their glasses, a sudden memory flashed in Mr. Harris's mind. 2 nights ago, he had seen Olivia talking quietly on the phone in the kitchen. She didn't notice him standing behind the wall. Her voice was low but urgent. He remembered her saying something like, "It will all be over soon. He won't be a problem anymore." At that time, he thought maybe she was talking about something else, maybe her job or a personal issue. But now, that memory made his blood run cold. Mr. Harris lowered his glass slightly, pretending to smile as everyone shouted, "Cheers." He watched as Olivia's eyes followed every move he made. That was the moment he knew, something was definitely wrong. He decided not to take a sip just yet. Instead, he laughed and placed his glass back on the table. "Oh, I forgot to check on the cake," he said cheerfully. "You two go ahead, I'll be back." Olivia looked confused, even nervous, but she didn't say anything. He walked away calmly, but his heart was beating fast. Inside the house, he took a deep breath. He placed the glass on the counter and looked at it under the kitchen light. The color looked normal, but that smell, it bothered him. He had no proof, no reason to accuse her, yet. But deep inside, he trusted his gut. He had lived long enough to know when someone wanted to harm him. A plan began to form in his mind. He looked out the kitchen window and saw Olivia still smiling, pretending everything was fine. He knew she wouldn't drink her own glass until she saw him drink his. That gave him an idea, a dangerous but clever one. He walked back outside, holding both glasses in his hands, smiling broadly as if nothing was wrong. "You're right, Olivia," he said kindly. "We should make this toast special. Let's drink together, shall we?" She nodded, her lips curling into a faint smile. But while walking toward her, Mr. Harris did something quietly, something no one noticed. He switched the glasses. He handed one to Olivia and kept the other for himself. She didn't realize it. Her eyes were fixed on him, waiting to see him drink first. But Mr. Harris was calm. He lifted his glass slowly. "To family, to new beginnings," he said softly. Olivia hesitated for a second, then smiled and lifted her glass too. Around them, everyone cheered again. Music started playing in the background. The moment was beautiful and deadly. Mr. Harris brought the glass to his lips but didn't drink. He only pretended to take a sip, letting the liquid touch his lips but not enter his mouth. He smiled and placed it down. A second later, Olivia also took a sip from her glass, the one that had been meant for him. Minutes passed. The laughter continued. But slowly, something began to change. Olivia's face turned pale. She touched her throat and blinked rapidly. Her hand began to shake. Daniel noticed first. "Olivia, are you okay?" he asked. She nodded weakly, trying to smile. But her voice came out strange. I don't feel so," she whispered, then stumbled forward. The glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Everyone gasped. Mr. Harris stood up quickly, pretending to be shocked. People rushed toward her. Someone called for help. Daniel held her shoulders, panicking. "What's happening?" he cried. Mr. Harris's heart was pounding, but he kept his face calm. Inside, his mind raced. Was it really poison? Or something else? Whatever it was, Olivia had drunk from the glass she herself had prepared. Within minutes, an ambulance arrived. Guests gathered around, whispering and frightened. Mr. Harris stood quietly near the door, his face pale, but his eyes cold and thoughtful. As they carried Olivia away, Daniel turned to his father, confused and scared. "Dad, what happened? She was fine just a minute ago." Mr. Harris sighed softly. "I don't know, son. Maybe something she ate. Maybe the drink." He glanced at the broken glass on the floor, then back at Daniel. His mind was full of questions, but also a strange, heavy silence. The guests slowly left after that. The party was over, replaced by confusion and worry. Mr. Harris went back inside the house. He sat at the dining table, staring at the empty chair where Olivia had been sitting. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the other glass, the one she had given him first. He smelled it again. That same sweet, unnatural scent filled his nose. A chill ran down his spine. Now he was sure it was no ordinary drink. Someone had truly tried to harm him. The night grew colder. The lights outside flickered in the wind. Mr. Harris sat there in silence, staring at the untouched glass, knowing that his quiet, peaceful life had just turned into something far darker. He didn't know what would happen next, whether Olivia would survive, what Daniel would say, or how he would ever prove the truth. But one thing he knew for sure, the game had just begun. And he wasn't going to lose. The night after the retirement party was cold and silent. The house that had been filled with laughter just hours ago now felt empty and heavy. Mr. Harris sat alone in the living room, the dim light from the lamp falling on his tired face. His mind was full of questions he could not ignore. He kept hearing the sound of Olivia's glass shattering on the floor, her voice trembling as she said she didn't feel well, and Daniel shouting for help. It replayed again and again like a broken film inside his head. The clock struck midnight, and still, Daniel had not returned from the hospital. Mr. Harris looked at the untouched drink that still sat on the counter. That sweet, strange smell was stronger now. He covered it with a napkin and placed it inside a small cabinet. He didn't know why, but something inside him told him not to throw it away. Maybe someday he would need proof. He walked slowly toward the window. The street outside was quiet. A few cars passed now and then, but everything else was still. His heart ached, not just from fear but from sadness. He never imagined his own daughter-in-law could want to hurt him. He had loved her like a daughter. He had trusted her completely. But now, that trust was shattered. He whispered softly to himself, "Why, Olivia? What did I ever do to you?" Around 2 a.m, the sound of the main door opening broke the silence. Daniel entered, his face pale and eyes red. He looked like he had been crying. Mr. Harris stood up quickly. "Daniel, how is she? Is she okay?" he asked, his voice shaking slightly. Daniel nodded slowly, then dropped his head. "She's stable now," he said. "The doctors said it was some kind of chemical reaction. They're still running tests, but they don't know exactly what caused it. They think maybe food poisoning or an allergy." Mr. Harris exhaled, relief mixed with confusion. "Did they ask what she drank or ate?" Daniel rubbed his forehead. "They did. I told them she only had wine, same as everyone else. But they said the symptoms didn't match regular food poisoning. It was something stronger, something strange." He looked at his father, his eyes full of worry. "Dad, do you think someone could have done this on purpose?" Mr. Harris froze. The question hit him hard. He wanted to tell Daniel everything, about the glass, about the switch, about his suspicion. But something stopped him. He looked into his son's innocent eyes and realized that the truth would break him. Daniel loved Olivia deeply. If he told him now, Daniel might never believe it. So he said quietly, "I don't know, son. Let's wait for the doctors to find out." Daniel sighed and nodded. He sat down heavily on the couch. "It was supposed to be your special night," he said softly. "I just don't understand how it turned into this." Mr. Harris placed a hand on his shoulder. "Life has strange ways, son. Maybe it's trying to show us something we missed." They both sat in silence. The wind outside howled, brushing against the windows like a whisper from the dark. The next morning, Daniel went back to the hospital early, and Mr. Harris stayed behind. He couldn't sleep the whole night. His thoughts were racing. He decided to look deeper into Olivia's behavior. He went into the kitchen and searched through the cabinets, checking every bottle, every container, every glass. Then, behind the spice rack, he found something that didn't belong there, a small brown bottle with no label. He picked it up carefully. The cap was half open, and inside was a liquid that smelled similar to the one in his wine. His heart pounded. He wrapped the bottle in tissue and hid it in his drawer. Now he was sure Olivia had done something terrible. But why? What reason could she possibly have? Later that afternoon, Daniel called him from the hospital. "Dad," he said in a low voice, "the doctors confirmed something. It wasn't food poisoning. They found traces of a toxic chemical in her blood, something mixed with alcohol." Mr. Harris's chest tightened. "Did they say what kind of chemical?" Daniel hesitated. "They're still checking. But the police might come to ask a few questions." They said it's a serious matter. Mr. Harris felt the blood drain from his face. He looked around the room nervously. "All right, son," he said calmly. "Just tell them the truth. We don't know what happened." That evening, 2 officers came by. They were polite but firm. They asked about the drinks, the food, and who had served them. Mr. Harris told them everything, almost everything. He mentioned that Olivia had poured his wine, but he didn't mention that he had switched the glasses. He didn't want to lie, but he also didn't want Daniel's life destroyed until he had proof. The officers nodded, wrote down notes, and said they would investigate further. After they left, Mr. Harris sat back down, exhausted. The silence of the house felt suffocating. The memories of last night haunted him: Olivia's faint smile, her trembling hand, the way she looked at him before passing out. Every detail played over and over in his mind. That night, he couldn't resist his curiosity. He took the bottle from the drawer and the glass from the cabinet. He went to his small study room, turned on a lamp, and placed both items on the table. He didn't have the tools to test what was inside, but he took photos of them with his phone, just in case. He had a friend named Peter who used to work in a medical lab. Maybe Peter could help him quietly. The next morning, he met Peter at a small cafe away from town. Peter was surprised to see him so early. "Harris, you look like you haven't slept in days," he said, frowning. Mr. Harris smiled weakly and handed him the small bottle. "I need you to test what's inside, Peter. Don't ask questions now. Just check if it's dangerous." Peter looked at the bottle, puzzled but serious. "All right, give me 2 days. I'll call you as soon as I know." As Mr. Harris walked back home, a cold breeze brushed against his face. He felt nervous but determined. He had to find the truth before the truth destroyed him. When he reached home, Daniel was already there. He looked tense. "Dad, the police came to the hospital again," he said. "They asked if Olivia had enemies or if anyone might want to harm her. She woke up for a short while and said she doesn't remember anything." Mr. Harris frowned. "She doesn't remember?" Daniel nodded. "She looked scared, Dad. Really scared. She said someone might have put something in her drink by mistake. She even said she saw someone near the table just before she took a sip." Mr. Harris's heart skipped a beat. "Who did she say it was?" Daniel hesitated, his voice trembling. "She said, 'It was you, Dad.'" The words hit him like thunder. Mr. Harris stood frozen, staring at his son. "Me?" he whispered. "She said that I was near her glass?" Daniel nodded slowly, his eyes confused and full of pain. "Dad, I told them it can't be true. I told them you'd never hurt anyone. But now the police might want to question you too." Mr. Harris's hands shook slightly. His heart pounded so loudly he could hear it. He realized the danger he was in. Olivia wasn't just dangerous, she was clever. Even from the hospital bed, she was turning the story against him. That evening, when Daniel went out to get medicine, Mr. Harris sat alone again. He looked at his reflection in the window, an old man with kind eyes, now trapped in a web of lies. He whispered to himself, "She's not only trying to kill me, she's trying to destroy me." Hours later, as the house grew quiet again, his phone rang. It was Peter. His voice sounded worried. "Harris, I checked that liquid," he said. "You were right. It's poison, not something common. It's a rare chemical used in cleaning agents. Even a few drops could kill a person in minutes if mixed with alcohol." Mr. Harris closed his eyes, his grip tightening on the phone. "Thank you, Peter," he said softly. "Please don't tell anyone yet." When he hung up, he felt both relief and fear. He finally had proof, but what good was proof if everyone already thought he was guilty? He looked at the photos on his phone, at the bottle sitting quietly in his drawer. Now he had to decide what to do next: stay silent and risk being blamed, or fight back and expose Olivia completely. Just then, he heard the sound of the main door opening. Daniel walked in, but this time, he wasn't alone. 2 police officers followed him inside. One of them looked at Mr. Harris and said, "Mr. Harris, we need you to come with us. We have a few questions regarding last night's incident." Mr. Harris's blood turned cold. His body froze in place. He looked at Daniel, who avoided his eyes. The officer stepped closer and said, "It's just routine questioning, sir. But we'll need you to come down to the station." Mr. Harris nodded slowly, his voice quiet but steady. "Of course," he said. "But before I go, there's something you should see." He reached toward his drawer, where the small brown bottle lay hidden, waiting to change everything. The morning sun rose quietly over the small neighborhood, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. But inside the Harris home, the air was cold and heavy with tension. Mr. Harris sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the floor, his thoughts running wild. He could still hear the officer's voice from last night echoing in his head, "We need you to come with us." Those words had changed everything. He got dressed slowly, his hands trembling a little. As he buttoned his shirt, he glanced at the mirror. His face looked pale, older than usual, but there was still a quiet strength in his eyes. He had faced many storms in life, but this one was different. This time, the enemy was not outside, it was within his own family. Downstairs, Daniel stood by the door with the officers. His eyes looked tired, his shoulders slumped. When his father came down, he tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Dad, they just want to ask you a few questions." "I told them you didn't do anything wrong," he said softly. Mr. Harris nodded. "I know, son," he replied calmly. "And I have nothing to hide." Before leaving, he quietly picked up a small brown envelope from his desk drawer. Inside it was the photograph of the bottle and a written note from his friend Peter confirming the presence of poison. He slipped the envelope into his coat pocket. He didn't trust anyone yet, not even Daniel, but he knew this paper might save his life. At the police station, the air smelled of coffee and old paper. The walls were lined with faded posters, and a slow ceiling fan spun above their heads. Mr. Harris sat at a wooden table, hands folded calmly. Across from him sat Detective Wallace, a tall man with sharp eyes and a voice that carried quiet authority. "Mr. Harris," the detective began, "we appreciate you coming in voluntarily. We're just trying to understand what happened at your party." Mr. Harris nodded. "I understand. I'll tell you everything I know." The detective leaned forward slightly. "We've spoken to several guests. Most said you were drinking wine before your daughter-in-law collapsed. One guest mentioned seeing you near the glasses just before she took a sip. Can you explain that?" Mr. Harris took a deep breath. He had expected that question. "Yes," he said simply. "Olivia poured me a glass of wine. But before drinking, I went to the kitchen to check on the cake. I picked up both glasses by mistake and brought them back together. I didn't mean any harm. I only wanted to toast with her." Detective Wallace studied him carefully. "So you admit you touched both glasses?" "Yes," Mr. Harris said calmly. "But I didn't put anything inside them. You can test my fingerprints or the bottles in my home. You'll find nothing." The detective nodded slowly. "We already did. We found your prints, but also hers, and traces of a chemical substance inside both glasses. The same substance found in her blood." Mr. Harris's heart skipped a beat. Both glasses? He hadn't expected that. He thought only one had been poisoned. "That can't be," he said quietly. "I never." Before he could finish, the detective interrupted. "We're not accusing you yet, sir. But it's strange, isn't it? If she meant to harm you, why would she drink from her own glass?" That question struck him deep. He hadn't thought of that angle. What if there was something more behind it? Was it possible she didn't mean to drink it at all? Maybe she planned to switch glasses again, but he acted faster? Or maybe someone else was involved? Detective Wallace leaned back, watching him carefully. Mr. Harris, your daughter-in-law said she saw you near her glass and that you looked nervous. She also mentioned that you warned her to drink it later. Do you remember saying anything like that? Mr. Harris frowned, confused. No. She's lying. I never said that. She's trying to twist everything. The detective scribbled something on his notepad but didn't respond right away. The silence in the room felt like a weight pressing down. Finally, he said, we'll verify everything. For now, you're free to go, but please don't leave town until we complete the investigation. Mr. Harris stood up, his chest tight. Thank you, officer, he said quietly. He turned to leave, but before stepping out, he placed the envelope on the table. You might want to test that, he said. It's from the same bottle that was used that night. The detective looked surprised. Where did you get this? Mr. Harris simply replied, from my kitchen, where Olivia hid it. Then he walked out without another word. Outside, the sky was turning gray. Daniel was waiting near the car, his face pale. Dad, what did they say? Are you in trouble? Mr. Harris looked at him for a long moment before answering. I'm not sure yet. But, Daniel, there's something I need you to know. I didn't do anything to hurt Olivia. Whatever she told the police, it's not true. Daniel looked torn. I believe you, Dad. But she's scared too. She said she saw you holding her glass. I don't know what to think anymore. Mr. Harris placed a hand on his son's shoulder. You don't have to believe anyone right now. Just stay calm. The truth always finds a way. They drove home in silence. The road seemed longer than usual, and the sound of the tires on the pavement was the only noise in the car. When they reached home, Mr. Harris went straight to his study and locked the door. He sat at his desk, staring at the old family photos on the wall, pictures of happier times, when his wife was still alive, when Daniel was a little boy, and when life was simple. He remembered how much Margaret had loved Olivia at first. She'll be good for Daniel, she had said. She's smart and kind. But now, years later, Mr. Harris wondered how blind they had been. He could still recall small moments, the way Olivia would ask about his will, the way she always wanted to know about his savings, the property, the pension. She would smile and say she was just being curious, but now he saw it differently. It wasn't curiosity. It was greed. He opened the drawer and pulled out a small leather file, his will papers. Inside, everything he owned was written down clearly. After his wife's death, he had divided everything equally between Daniel and a charity his wife supported. Olivia had once asked him if he would ever change it, since Daniel was married now. He had said no. Maybe that had angered her. As he sat there, lost in thought, the phone rang. It was Detective Wallace again. Mr. Harris, the detective said, we tested the liquid you gave us. You were right. It's poison, the same chemical found in your daughter-in-law's blood. But here's the strange part, the bottle had only your fingerprints. Mr. Harris froze. That's impossible, he said quickly. She's the one who hid it. She must have wiped it after using it. The detective's tone was calm. Maybe. But until we find proof, it doesn't look good for you. After the call ended, Mr. Harris felt his knees go weak. He sat down slowly, his hands shaking. The trap was closing around him, and Olivia was winning without even trying. That evening, Daniel came home late. He looked tired and distant. He didn't talk much during dinner. Mr. Harris tried to start a conversation, but Daniel kept quiet. Finally, he said softly, Dad, Olivia wants to come home tomorrow. The doctors said she's well enough. The police cleared her for now. Mr. Harris looked up in shock. She's coming here? Daniel nodded. Yes. She said she needs rest, and she wants to talk to you. Mr. Harris's mind started spinning. Why would she want to come back? Was she planning to finish what she started? Or was she trying to act innocent now? Either way, he knew one thing: he couldn't let her fool Daniel again. That night, sleep refused to come. Mr. Harris sat in his chair by the window, staring at the moonlight spilling through the curtains. Every sound in the house made him tense. Around midnight, he thought he heard footsteps outside his door. He held his breath and listened. The sound stopped for a moment, then moved away slowly. He got up quietly and opened the door. The hallway was empty. But when he looked down, something small caught his eye: a piece of white paper lying on the floor. He picked it up and unfolded it. His eyes widened as he read the words written in neat handwriting. You should have drunk your glass that night. His hand trembled. The note wasn't signed, but he didn't need to guess who it was from. He looked toward the dark hallway and felt his chest tighten with both fear and anger. She was coming back. And she wasn't finished yet. The next morning began quietly, but a heavy tension hung in the air. The sky outside was dull and gray, and a light drizzle fell over the empty street. Inside the house, everything felt different: colder, darker, and full of unease. Mr. Harris sat in the kitchen, holding a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. He hadn't slept much since reading that note. Those words, "You should have drunk your glass that night," kept echoing in his mind like a warning. He looked out the window, watching the raindrops slide down the glass. Soon Olivia would be back under the same roof. The thought made his heart beat faster. He didn't know what her next move would be, but one thing was certain: she was not done yet. Daniel came downstairs looking tired, his hair messy and his face pale. "Morning, Dad," he said softly. "I'm going to the hospital to pick Olivia up. She should be ready by noon." Mr. Harris forced a calm smile. "All right, son. I'll prepare her room." Inside, though, he was uneasy. He didn't want her back here. But he also knew that telling Daniel not to bring her home would make things worse. Daniel loved her blindly. If Mr. Harris protested too much, it would only make him look guilty. When Daniel left, the house fell silent again. Mr. Harris walked upstairs to the guest room where Olivia used to stay before the wedding. He opened the window, letting in the damp morning air. The smell of rain and old wood filled the room. As he placed fresh sheets on the bed, he felt a strange shiver, not from the cold, but from the thought that soon the woman who tried to poison him would be sleeping there. He paused for a moment, staring at the empty bed. "You won't win, Olivia," he whispered to himself. "Not this time." At exactly noon, the sound of a car pulling up outside broke the silence. Mr. Harris's heart began to race. He walked slowly toward the door. The car door opened, and Daniel stepped out, holding an umbrella. Olivia followed, dressed in a long gray coat and a scarf. She looked pale and weak, but her eyes were still the same. Cold. Calculating. "Welcome home," Mr. Harris said quietly as Daniel helped her inside. Olivia smiled faintly. "Thank you, Dad. I'm sorry for all the trouble I caused. I don't remember much from that night." Her voice was soft, almost innocent, but her eyes met his for a brief second, and in that second, Mr. Harris saw something dark, something that said, "I know what you did." Daniel helped her to the couch, fussing over her like a worried husband. Mr. Harris watched silently, his face calm but his mind sharp. Olivia looked around the room as if nothing had happened. She even joked lightly, "The house looks the same, just a little quieter without all the party noise." Mr. Harris smiled politely. "Yes, quieter, but not peaceful." She looked at him, her smile fading slightly, then looked away. The silence between them was thick. Over the next few days, things seemed normal on the surface. Daniel went to work in the morning, leaving Olivia and Mr. Harris alone in the house. They spoke very little. She spent most of her time resting in her room or in the garden, pretending to recover. But Mr. Harris noticed small things most people would ignore. One day, he found her in the kitchen, standing near the sink, her hands trembling slightly as she washed a cup. When she noticed him, she quickly smiled and said, "Just cleaning up." But he saw something on the counter behind her, a small packet of white powder. She noticed his gaze and quickly covered it with a towel. Another evening, he caught her looking through the study room drawers when she thought he was asleep. When he asked what she was doing, she said she was looking for paper to write a note to Daniel. But he knew she was searching for something else, maybe the evidence he had hidden. Mr. Harris stayed silent but alert. He began writing down every detail, the times she left her room, the things she touched, the places she went. He kept a small notebook hidden behind his bookshelf. He also called Detective Wallace again, secretly. "Detective," he said in a low voice, "she's back home. But I'm sure she's planning something. I've seen things that don't feel right." Wallace sighed. "Mr. Harris, I believe you. The lab confirmed that the poison bottle you gave us was real. But we can't arrest her yet, there's no direct proof that she used it. We need something stronger. If she makes another move, call me immediately." That night, Mr. Harris couldn't sleep. He sat by his window, notebook in hand, listening to the sounds of the house. Every creak made him nervous. Around midnight, he heard footsteps again, slow, careful steps moving past his door. He got up quietly and looked through the small gap near the hinges. It was Olivia. She was walking toward the kitchen, holding something in her hand. He followed her silently, staying in the shadows. In the kitchen, she opened the refrigerator and reached for a milk jug. Then she pulled a small bottle from her coat pocket, a bottle that looked painfully familiar. Mr. Harris's heart raced. She was doing it again. He watched as she unscrewed the bottle and poured a few drops into the milk. Her movements were calm, practiced, confident. Then she placed the milk back in the fridge and wiped the counter clean. When she turned around, she froze. Mr. Harris was standing at the doorway, his face pale but his eyes burning with anger. "Up so late, Olivia?" he asked quietly. She blinked, caught off guard, then smiled faintly. "Oh, Dad, you scared me. I couldn't sleep, so I came to get some milk." "What are you doing awake?" Mr. Harris stepped closer, his voice cold. "You tell me. What are you doing with that bottle?" Her smile vanished. For a moment, she looked shocked. But then, like a mask being put back on, she regained her calm. "What bottle?" "I don't know what you're talking about." He walked past her and opened the fridge. The milk jug was there, the cap slightly wet. He turned around slowly. "You poisoned it, didn't you?" Her voice sharpened. "You're losing your mind, old man. Maybe you need help." Mr. Harris's hands shook with rage. "Don't lie to me, Olivia. I saw you with my own eyes." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Even if you did, who would believe you? Everyone already thinks you tried to poison me. If I tell them you're going crazy, they'll believe me again. Maybe next time, you'll be the one in the hospital, or worse." Her words were cold and sharp like knives. Mr. Harris felt a chill run through his body. For a second, he thought she might actually attack him right there. But then, Daniel's car headlights flashed through the window, he was back from work. Olivia quickly turned away and smiled sweetly. "Good night, Dad," she said softly, and walked upstairs as if nothing had happened. Mr. Harris stood there for a long moment, frozen. His hands were shaking, his breath heavy. He knew she was right about one thing: no one would believe him without proof. He had to be careful, smart, and patient. He couldn't fight her with anger. He needed evidence. The next morning, he woke up early, before Daniel or Olivia. He went to the kitchen, took the milk jug, and poured a little into a small glass bottle. He sealed it and wrote the date on it. Then he placed it in his desk drawer beside his notebook. When Daniel came down for breakfast, Olivia smiled brightly, pouring him a glass of milk. Mr. Harris watched silently from across the table, pretending to read the newspaper. His heart thumped painfully in his chest as Daniel lifted the glass to his lips. "Daniel, wait," he said suddenly, standing up. Both of them looked at him, surprised. Mr. Harris forced a smile. "You forgot your vitamins," he said calmly, walking to the counter. He opened a small cabinet slowly, pretending to look for something. He needed time. His hands were sweating. When he turned back, Daniel had already taken a sip. Olivia smiled faintly, her eyes gleaming. Within seconds, Daniel frowned. "That milk tastes strange," he said. "Did it go bad?" Olivia's smile disappeared. "No, it's fresh," she said quickly. Mr. Harris's heart dropped. He rushed forward, grabbing the glass from Daniel's hand. "Don't drink any more," he shouted. Daniel looked shocked. "Dad, what's wrong with you?" Olivia stood up, pretending to look scared. "He's doing it again, Daniel. He's losing control," she cried. But Mr. Harris ignored her. "Daniel, please," he said firmly. "Go to the doctor now. Take a blood test. Do it for me." Daniel hesitated, looking between his father and his wife. "You're scaring me, both of you," he said finally. "I'll go, all right." He grabbed his coat and left for the clinic, confused and shaken. Olivia stood silently for a few seconds, then turned to Mr. Harris with a cold, deadly look. "You just made your biggest mistake," she whispered. "Because now, I'll make sure no one ever believes a word you say." She turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing through the hall. Mr. Harris stood frozen, realizing that the battle had just turned into a war, and this time, it was going to be far more dangerous. The day began quietly, but the tension in the Harris house was unbearable. Mr. Harris sat in the study, surrounded by his notebook, the small brown bottle of poison, and the sealed milk sample he had taken from the kitchen. His mind raced with questions and fears. Olivia was clever, too clever, and he realized that the danger wasn't only for him, Daniel could be at risk too. He had to act fast, but he also had to be careful. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart. He glanced at the clock. Daniel would be back from the clinic any minute with his blood test results. Mr. Harris felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Every second felt like an hour. He remembered the way Olivia had moved silently at night, the way she had smiled faintly even after attempting something deadly. She was patient, calculating, and ruthless. The thought made him shiver. He knew he couldn't underestimate her, not for a second. When Daniel finally returned home, his face was pale, and his eyes carried worry. "Dad," he said, voice trembling. "The doctor called me. They found traces of the same chemical in my blood." Mr. Harris felt his chest tighten. "What? How much?" he asked, trying to remain calm. Daniel shook his head. "Not much. They said it's not enough to harm me seriously, but it's there. And they warned me to be careful. Someone could have tried to hurt me too." A wave of anger mixed with fear surged through Mr. Harris. Olivia had gone beyond him. She had targeted Daniel. He clenched his fists, his mind racing with plans. She wasn't just greedy, she was dangerous. And if she wasn't stopped now, no one would be safe. "Did you tell the doctor what happened at the party?" Mr. Harris asked quietly. Daniel shook his head. "No, I didn't. I didn't want them to think I'm paranoid. I only told them about the milk yesterday." Mr. Harris nodded. Good. Keep it that way for now. We need proof, Daniel. Solid proof. Otherwise, she can twist the story again. Later that day, Mr. Harris called Detective Wallace. Detective, he said, voice low but urgent, I think Olivia is planning something bigger. She's not finished, and Daniel might be in danger. Please, you need to check this house carefully. Wallace sighed. Harris, I understand. But we can't act without evidence. If she's careful, we might never catch her. You need to be careful too. Mr. Harris hung up the phone and sat in silence. He stared at the brown bottle, the milk, and the notebook. Everything depended on timing now. One mistake, and Olivia could turn everything against him again. That evening, Olivia returned from the hospital for a brief checkup. She walked through the front door, smiling faintly, her hair neatly tied back, her coat still damp from the drizzle outside. Daniel greeted her softly, guiding her into the living room. Mr. Harris stayed in the shadows, observing silently. Every step she took, every gesture she made, he recorded in his mind. Dinner passed quietly, almost painfully. Olivia spoke to Daniel, asking questions about work and everyday life. She didn't look at Mr. Harris directly, but he could feel her eyes on him sometimes, calculating, watching, judging. He knew she was testing him, seeing if he was alert, seeing if he would make a mistake. After dinner, Daniel went to bed early, still exhausted from the hospital visit. Olivia stayed up, pretending to read in the living room. Mr. Harris waited until the house grew quiet, then approached the kitchen silently. He checked the drawers, the counters, and the refrigerator. Nothing seemed out of place, but he knew she had a habit of hiding things in plain sight. Suddenly, a sound caught his attention, a soft click near the pantry. He froze and waited. The door slowly opened, and Olivia stepped out, holding a small bottle in her hand. She moved carefully, slowly, as if the house were empty. But Mr. Harris knew better. He stepped forward from the shadows. Caught again, he said quietly. Olivia's eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. She smiled faintly, but it wasn't warm, it was dangerous. You're everywhere, she whispered. Even when I think I'm alone. Mr. Harris's hands shook, but he kept his voice calm. You're playing with fire, Olivia. This ends tonight. She laughed softly, a cold, chilling sound. Tonight? No, Mr. Harris. Tonight is only the beginning. You think you can stop me? You've already failed once, everyone thinks you're guilty. You have no proof, no allies, and no one trusts you. Do you really think you can win? He took a deep breath. I've lived long enough to know how to survive, Olivia. And I'm not afraid of you. Her smile disappeared. She took a step closer, and the tension in the room thickened. Mr. Harris noticed her eyes flicker toward the pantry. That bottle in your hand, he said slowly, it won't help you if you're careless. Olivia's hand tightened around it. Careful? I've been careful for months. And you? You're the one who keeps sneaking around, spying on me. What does that make you? Someone who won't let his family be hurt, he replied firmly. Someone who will fight back. Her expression changed. There was a flicker of surprise, maybe even fear. But then she masked it again, her smile returning, colder than before. You have no idea what's coming, she said. Before Mr. Harris could respond, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. A tray of dishes had fallen from the counter. Daniel had returned unexpectedly early. Olivia quickly hid the bottle behind her back. Daniel entered, confused. What's going on? He asked. His eyes darted between them, sensing the tension in the room. Mr. Harris forced a smile. Nothing, Daniel. Just cleaning up a little mess. But Olivia's eyes flashed with warning. She whispered softly, so only Mr. Harris could hear, "You'll regret this. Watch carefully. I always win." That night, Mr. Harris couldn't sleep. He sat in the study, thinking through every detail, every move she had made. He realized that Olivia wasn't just trying to harm him, she was planning something bigger, something that would destroy the family if left unchecked. He went through his notebook, reviewing every incident, the wine glass, the note, the milk, the hidden bottle. Each detail fit together like pieces of a puzzle, painting a picture of her true intentions. She wasn't just greedy, she was ruthless, patient, and dangerous. Then, as the clock struck midnight, he heard a soft sound outside the study window, a shadow moving across the garden. He got up and peered outside. In the faint moonlight, he could see someone crouched near the flower beds, moving slowly. It wasn't immediately clear, but his heart sank as he recognized the figure. Olivia. She was outside, in the rain, moving with a purpose. Mr. Harris's hands clenched into fists. He realized this wasn't just about poison anymore, she was taking her game to a new level. And he had to act before it was too late. He whispered to himself, "This ends now." But as he reached for the phone to call Detective Wallace, he heard a soft creak from behind him, the study door slowly opening. A shadow entered the room. It was not Olivia. It was someone else. The study felt colder than ever. Mr. Harris froze, staring at the shadow near the door. He had expected Olivia to be outside, in the garden, but the figure entering the room was not her. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing loudly in the silent house. The intruder stepped into the light, and for a moment, Mr. Harris didn't recognize them. Then the face came into focus. It was Peter, his old friend from the lab. Relief mixed with confusion. "Peter?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. What are you doing here?" Peter's face was pale, eyes wide. "Harris. I didn't know where else to go. I found something, about Olivia. Something you need to see immediately." Mr. Harris's heart skipped. He motioned for Peter to sit. "Tell me. Now." Peter handed him a small envelope. Inside were several photographs, taken secretly, showing Olivia meeting with a stranger at a nearby cafe days before the retirement party. There were also receipts, purchases of chemicals, small bottles, and items clearly meant for poisoning. But what made Mr. Harris gasp was the note tacked with the photos, written in a shaky hand. "She's planning everything. Not just the wine, not just Daniel, it's the inheritance. She wants it all." Mr. Harris leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. All the small pieces finally started to fit together. The wine, the milk, the note, the poison, it was all part of a plan. Olivia wasn't just careless or impulsive, she was calculating, patient, and ruthless. She had spent months planning this, waiting for the perfect moment when no one would suspect her. Peter continued, "Harris, there's more. I went through the lab records quietly. The poison she bought is extremely potent. Even a small drop could have killed you instantly if you had actually drunk the wine. And it wasn't her first attempt, she tried small doses before, testing reactions, making sure Daniel wouldn't get sick immediately. She's methodical." Mr. Harris swallowed hard. The anger inside him burned hotter than ever. "She tried to kill me, she tried to kill Daniel, and she would have succeeded if I hadn't switched the glasses." Peter nodded gravely. "Yes. That's why you need to act fast. You have proof now, but you need to use it carefully. She's smart. If you move too openly, she'll twist it against you." They sat in tense silence, the weight of the revelation pressing down on them. Finally, Mr. Harris spoke, voice low and steady. "Then we need a plan. A plan to catch her in the act. To prove to Daniel and the police what she really is." Peter looked at him with concern. "Are you ready for this, Harris? Once you confront her, there's no turning back. She's dangerous, and she won't hesitate." Mr. Harris nodded. I've waited too long. Too many lives are at risk. This ends tonight, on my terms. The rest of the day passed slowly. Mr. Harris and Peter prepared quietly. They set up cameras in the kitchen, carefully hidden, and placed small bottles and decoys on counters where Olivia might reach for them. They wanted to record everything, proof undeniable, no room for lies. As evening fell, the house seemed quieter, almost too quiet. Daniel left for a late meeting, leaving only Mr. Harris and Olivia at home. Mr. Harris pretended to read in the living room, eyes constantly flicking toward the kitchen and the hallway. Olivia moved gracefully through the house, seemingly calm, but he noticed her hands trembling slightly. Around 10 at night, she entered the kitchen. Her movements were careful, deliberate. She reached for the small bottle she had hidden earlier, the same bottle that had caused so much chaos. Mr. Harris's heart raced, but he remained calm, hiding behind the doorway, camera in hand. She poured a few drops into a glass and turned, smiling faintly as if nothing had happened. Then she walked toward the living room and froze. Mr. Harris stepped into the light. "Caught you again," he said quietly but firmly. Olivia's eyes widened for a fraction of a second, then narrowed. "You're impossible," she whispered. "Do you enjoy playing this game?" "I enjoy staying alive," he replied calmly. "And I enjoy protecting my son. Step away from that glass." She laughed softly, a chilling sound. "You think you're clever. But clever isn't enough." At that moment, the hidden camera captured every detail, Olivia's movements, her expression, the bottle, the poison in her hands. Mr. Harris signaled Peter through his phone. Peter, hidden outside, began recording the live feed and noting every detail. Olivia suddenly lunged toward the counter, attempting to grab another decoy bottle. Mr. Harris moved quickly, stepping between her and the glass. She froze again, realizing she had been caught completely in the act. Her face turned pale, her confident mask slipping. "You won't get away with this," she hissed, her voice trembling with rage. "I already have the proof," Mr. Harris said firmly. "The police will see everything. Your lies, your plan, every attempt you made. This ends tonight." She stepped back, eyes darting, calculating her next move. But before she could make another attempt, there was a knock at the front door. Detective Wallace entered, flanked by officers. "Mr. Harris called us," he said calmly. "We received a report of suspicious activity in your home. Can you explain?" Mr. Harris pointed toward Olivia, who was now trembling, cornered by the law and the evidence. "Detective, everything you need to know is right there," he said. "This is the woman who tried to poison me, my son, and possibly herself too. Every move she made was planned carefully. We have proof." Wallace nodded and signaled his officers. They stepped forward, securing the scene. Olivia's eyes widened in fear. "No, you don't understand. I didn't do anything," she screamed, her voice cracking. But it was too late. The cameras, the photographs, the notes, everything told the truth. And for the first time, Mr. Harris felt a strange relief. The danger wasn't over, but the threat was finally being contained. As she was taken away by the officers, she turned her eyes to Mr. Harris. "You think you've won?" she whispered. "You have no idea what's coming." Mr. Harris watched silently as she was led out. He felt his knees weaken but forced himself to stand tall. For years, he had lived with patience, wisdom, and caution. Tonight, all of that had saved him and his son. Later, in the quiet of the house, Peter and Mr. Harris reviewed the recordings. Every frame showed Olivia's plan in detail, the poison, the attempts, the hidden bottles. It was undeniable. She had almost succeeded, but clever thinking, courage, and timing had stopped her. Mr. Harris sat back in his chair, exhausted but relieved. "It's finally over," he whispered. Peter nodded. "For now, yes. But people like her, they don't change easily. Stay alert. Mr. Harris closed his eyes, letting the silence of the house surround him. He had survived the night, saved his son, and uncovered the truth. But he knew one thing: life after danger felt different. Every laugh, every smile, every simple moment was now precious. And nothing would ever take that peace lightly again. As he looked toward the bedroom where Daniel slept, he whispered softly, "We're safe, for now." But in the shadows of the house, a faint smile lingered, a reminder that darkness never truly disappears. The morning after Olivia's arrest, the Harris house was unusually quiet. The sun filtered softly through the curtains, but the warmth couldn't reach the tension still lingering in the air. Mr. Harris walked slowly through the empty halls, his hands folded behind his back. Everything felt fragile, as if the house itself were holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Daniel had returned home late the night before, shaken and silent. He barely slept, pacing in the living room, replaying the scenes of the police taking Olivia away. His father noticed the weariness etched on his son's face. Daniel had always trusted Olivia, loved her deeply. To see her for what she truly was, cold, calculating, and willing to kill, was almost too much for him to accept. "Dad," Daniel said quietly as he approached Mr. Harris. "I still can't believe she tried to hurt us. How could she? We thought we knew her." Mr. Harris placed a steady hand on his son's shoulder. "Daniel, sometimes people hide who they really are behind smiles and kindness. It's hard to see it until the truth comes out. But we've seen the truth now, and that's what matters." Daniel nodded, swallowing hard. I feel so guilty. I brought her here, trusted her. I should have seen the signs." "Don't blame yourself, son," Mr. Harris said softly. "She's clever. She fooled a lot of people, not just you. But now we have a chance to make things right." Even as they tried to calm each other, a shadow of fear lingered. Olivia had been patient, meticulous. Mr. Harris knew that while the immediate danger was contained, her mind would still be active, planning her next move from wherever she was now. They spent the morning documenting everything: the photographs, the camera footage, the notes, and the sealed bottles of poison. Peter joined them quietly, offering his support. "The evidence is solid," he said. "If the authorities review everything properly, there's no way she can escape the consequences." Mr. Harris nodded, though he felt no joy in this. Justice was necessary, but the events had left scars, invisible, deep, and lingering. Later that afternoon, Detective Wallace called. "Mr. Harris, we've reviewed the recordings and photographs. They clearly show Olivia's intent. She's being charged with attempted poisoning and endangering a minor, your son. We'll also investigate her other activities, including the chemicals she purchased." Mr. Harris exhaled slowly. "Thank you, Detective. I just want to make sure she can't harm anyone else." Wallace's voice was calm but firm. "She won't, Mr. Harris. But stay alert. People like her don't give up easily. And Daniel, watch him too. Emotional trauma can be subtle but long-lasting." After the call, the house grew quiet again. Mr. Harris and Daniel sat in the living room, drinking tea in silence. Every sound seemed amplified: the ticking clock, the wind brushing the windows, even their own breathing. Suddenly, Daniel spoke, voice hesitant. "Dad. I've been thinking. Why did she do it? Why poison you at the retirement party? Was it just greed for the inheritance?" Mr. Harris nodded slowly. "It's partly that, yes. But greed doesn't explain everything. She wanted control, power. She wanted to prove she could manipulate anyone, even the people who trusted her most. That night was about testing the limits, seeing if she could get away with murder and make it look like someone else was guilty. It was cruel and calculated." Daniel shivered, staring into his cup. "And she could have succeeded if you hadn't switched glasses. Yes, Mr. Harris replied softly. It was a small action, but it changed everything. It saved both of us. The day passed slowly, filled with quiet conversations, paperwork, and preparation for the police interviews that would follow. But even as they focused on rebuilding a sense of normalcy, the shadow of uncertainty remained. Olivia's motives were still partially hidden. Her actions hinted at something more, something deeper than money or control. That evening, Mr. Harris received an unexpected letter, a plain envelope with no return address. He opened it carefully, and inside was a single line written in familiar handwriting. You may have won this battle, but the war isn't over. His hands trembled as he read the note. It was unsigned, but there was no doubt who it was from. Olivia. She had left it somewhere in the mail system just to remind him she was still alive and aware. Daniel noticed his father's pallor. Dad, what is it? Mr. Harris folded the paper slowly. Just a warning, he said quietly. She wants us to know she's not done yet. But she can't hurt us now. Not with evidence, not with the police watching. The next morning, a surprise visitor arrived at the door, a distant cousin of Olivia's, someone Mr. Harris had never met before. She introduced herself as Elaine and claimed she had information about Olivia's past. Mr. Harris and Daniel invited her in cautiously. Elaine's expression was nervous, her hands twisting the strap of her bag. I don't know who to trust, she said softly. But I knew Olivia before she married Daniel. She's not just greedy or cruel. She has a history of manipulation and planning. She's done things to other families, tried to control inheritances and relationships. You need to be careful, she doesn't stop easily. Mr. Harris felt a chill run through him. How do you know this? He asked. Elaine lowered her voice. I was there. I tried to warn people before. But she's persuasive. She makes everyone believe she's innocent. And now she's cornered. That makes her dangerous. Daniel's face went pale. So she planned all this long before our marriage? Before she came here? Elaine nodded. Yes. She waits, observes, manipulates. And she chooses the perfect moment to act. Your retirement party, that was her plan from the start. The room grew silent. Mr. Harris sat back, overwhelmed by the realization that the danger had been bigger than he thought. Olivia's actions were not impulsive, they were part of a long, calculated strategy. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the front door. Both Mr. Harris and Daniel froze. Elaine looked startled as well. Mr. Harris motioned Daniel to be quiet and peeked through the window. Outside, standing in the rain, was a familiar figure, Olivia. Her face was pale, her eyes cold and unwavering. She smiled faintly, holding a small package in her hands. She spoke without hesitation. I came to finish what I started. You can't hide forever. Mr. Harris felt his chest tighten. He realized that even with the evidence, the cameras, and the police, Olivia had one final move in her mind, and he had no idea what it would be. He glanced at Daniel and Elaine, then back at the front door. The war was far from over. And as Olivia stepped forward, rain dripping from her coat, the house seemed to hold its breath once again. The rain poured heavily outside, washing the streets in a gray blur. Inside the Harris house, tension hung thick in the air like smoke. Mr. Harris stood near the front door, eyes fixed on Olivia. She had taken a step forward, holding a small package in her hands, and her faint smile sent chills down his spine. Daniel stood beside him, fists clenched, and Elaine watched nervously from the side. Every muscle in Mr. Harris's body was tense, ready for the confrontation he knew was inevitable. Olivia's voice was calm, almost eerily composed. You think you've won, Mr. Harris. Cameras, police, evidence, none of it matters. I can still take everything from you. Mr. Harris's voice was steady, though his heart pounded. Not this time, Olivia. You've been caught in every move. You're outnumbered, and you're outsmarted. Her eyes flickered with something darker: anger, fear, and desperation. Outsmarted? You've seen nothing yet. I've prepared for everything. You don't even realize what's coming. With that, she moved toward the package in her hands. Mr. Harris held his breath, preparing for the worst. Olivia slowly opened it, revealing another small bottle identical to the one she had tried to use before. She raised it, clearly intending to pour it somewhere. "Stop!" Mr. Harris shouted, stepping forward. "This ends now. If you touch anything, I'm calling the police again. And this time, they'll stay." Olivia paused, her smile fading slightly as she realized he was serious. But she wasn't finished. She took a step closer, her voice low and threatening. "You may have cameras, you may have proof, but what about the people you trust? Who will believe you when I tell them you tried to scare me? You've already failed once, and everyone thinks I'm innocent." Mr. Harris stayed calm. "I've lived long enough to know that evidence doesn't lie. Every move you made, every attempt, it's all documented. Even if you speak, the truth will come out." Olivia's hands trembled slightly, but her voice remained cold. "You think you're clever. But clever isn't enough when someone has nothing to lose." Mr. Harris noticed the subtle shift in her eyes, the desperation hidden beneath the confident mask. She wasn't just fighting for money or control anymore. She was fighting for survival. That realization was crucial. He understood that she could lash out in unpredictable ways. He slowly raised his hands, keeping his voice calm and firm. "Olivia, you're cornered. There's no reason to risk everything. Surrender now, and things won't get worse for you." For a tense moment, she didn't move. The rain outside beat against the windows, each drop sounding like a warning. Then, as if realizing there was no escape, she dropped the bottle. It shattered on the floor, spilling harmless liquid across the tiles. Her expression was a mix of anger and defeat. Detective Wallace and his officers entered immediately, having been called by Mr. Harris through a hidden phone. Olivia was taken into custody without further resistance. She glanced at Mr. Harris one last time, a flicker of hatred in her eyes, before being led away. Mr. Harris sank into a chair, exhausted but relieved. Daniel sat beside him, shaking his head. "I can't believe it's finally over," he whispered. Peter, who had been quietly observing, nodded. "For now, yes. But people like her, they leave marks. The scars aren't just physical. She tested your trust, your patience, your family." Mr. Harris rubbed his temples, breathing deeply. "I know. But we survived. And that's what matters. We stayed calm, we stayed smart, and we didn't let fear control us." The next few days were spent securing the house, reviewing police reports, and speaking with authorities. The evidence Mr. Harris had gathered, the cameras, photographs, and notes, ensured that Olivia could not escape punishment. The police also began investigating her past, uncovering more attempts at manipulation and control in other families. Daniel slowly began to recover emotionally. The experience had shaken him deeply, but he grew stronger with each passing day. He learned the importance of observation, caution, and trusting his instincts. Mr. Harris watched his son with quiet pride. They had survived not just a physical threat, but a test of trust and wisdom. One evening, as the sun set, Mr. Harris sat on the porch, watching the orange and pink hues of the sky. Daniel joined him, sitting quietly beside him. The air was filled with the gentle chirping of birds and the soft rustle of leaves. Peace, for the first time in weeks, returned to the house. "Dad," Daniel said softly, "I've learned so much from this. About trust, about people, about life." Mr. Harris smiled faintly. "And I've learned, too, that even when danger comes from the people we think we know best, patience, careful thinking, and courage can protect us." Always remember, Daniel, fear can't rule your decisions. Daniel nodded. They sat in silence, listening to the sounds of the evening. The memory of Olivia's threat lingered, but it no longer had power over them. They had faced darkness and emerged stronger. Later that night, Mr. Harris wrote a small note to himself: life is fragile. People are unpredictable. But wisdom, caution, and courage can see us through even the darkest storms. He folded the note, placing it in his desk. Then, looking toward his son, he whispered quietly, "We survived, and that's what matters." The house finally felt safe again. The threat of Olivia was gone, the danger behind them, and the family could begin to heal. But the lessons remained: vigilance, trust, and the importance of never underestimating those who seem harmless. Mr. Harris leaned back in his chair and smiled faintly. He knew life would continue with its challenges, but he also knew that as long as he stayed alert, as long as he acted with wisdom and courage, no one could break the family again. And with that, he finally felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in weeks. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, always trust your instincts, stay vigilant, and never underestimate the power of careful thinking.